This hour of The Context will be dominated by events in the Middle East as Israel bombs Qatar, saying the strikes were targeting senior Hamas leaders. But the attack provokes international outrage. The strikes raise questions about the future of ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas to try to resolve the conflict in Gaza. And following the strikes, Israel's Prime Minister says there will be no immunity for Hamas leaders. We will be live in Jerusalem and Washington with analysis from experts on both sides of the Atlantic. There's international outrage over Israel's strikes on Qatar, a key mediator in the Gaza ceasefire talks targeting senior Hamas leaders. Qatar has described as baseless claims that it was notified in advance, with a Foreign Ministry spokesperson Majed Al-Ansari posting on X, statements circulating about Qatar being informed of the attack in advance are false. The call received from an American official came as explosions sounded from the Israeli attack. Well, that statement follows a White House briefing in which reporters were told that the president's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, was directed to warn Qatar that the attacks were coming after Washington was alerted by the US military. Pictures from Doha show a badly damaged building in the Qatari district of Doha, where several explosions were heard around 4 p.m. local time. The Israeli Defense Forces say they were targeting those directly responsible for the attacks of October the 7th, 2023. But Hamas claims that while 6 people were killed in the strikes, its negotiating team survived. In her briefing, the White House press secretary said President Trump felt very badly about the location of the attack, which he called an unfortunate incident which could serve as an opportunity for peace. We're going to bring you a clip of that in a moment and try to explain more about this rather complicated picture about what may or may not have happened in terms about which country knew what and when. Here in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer condemned the airstrikes, saying they risked escalating violence in the region. We start, though, with a report from Azadeh Mashiri in Doha.
Israeli fighter jets deliver multiple bombs in Doha this afternoon. A totally unexpected attack. This was the target, a residential neighborhood housing several Hamas leaders near embassies and luxury hotels.
This is as close as we could get to the location where the strike has happened. There's a heavy police presence. A lot of streets are cordoned off around here, and you can hear there's a helicopter, multiple helicopters that have been hovering above us. And on the way, we passed Doha's parliament. It's only about a 15-minute drive from the place where all these explosions were heard.
There are conflicting reports on whether there have been fatalities. It's believed that the Hamas team, led by Khalil al-Hayya, negotiating a possible ceasefire in Gaza, may have been the target. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, seen here in the control room during the attack, has said he ordered the strikes after a deadly shooting in Jerusalem yesterday.
Now, they were meeting in the same place, exactly the same place, where they celebrated this savagery almost 2 years ago. At the beginning of the war, I promised that Israel would reach those who perpetrated this horror. And today, Israel and I have kept that promise.
Qatar has said the strike constitutes a blatant violation of all international laws and norms and poses a serious threat to the security and safety of Qataris. The message Qatar is now sending to its residents is, despite today's explosions, Doha is safe. Azadeh Mashiri, BBC News, Doha.
Well, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has been speaking to journalists in the past hour or so. She said Israel's strike on Qatar does not advance Israel or America's goals.
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
Well, we can cross live now to Jerusalem and to the White House in Washington to speak to our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams, and our North America correspondent, Nomia Iqbal. Nomia, I'll begin with you as we've just heard that clip from the White House press secretary. And there was a lot of focus in terms of the questions from reporters about the sequencing, the timing of events, and when the US knew about these strikes and when it informed Qatar.
Well, Caroline Levitt wouldn't be drawn into answering any of those questions, but the statement that she read out was pretty stark in its criticism, and you can see why that may be. It's thought that Hamas leaders were in the middle of negotiating and talking about Trump's ceasefire proposal when Israel struck, quite similar to what happened between Iran and the US back in June. But the key difference here, of course, is that Qatar is a major ally of the US. It hosts a key American airbase, and also it's invested billions into the US. The Qataris have even controversially gifted Donald Trump a jet. And so questions are being asked exactly how this could have happened. And the Trump administration, like I said, aren't going into sort of any of the details of exactly what they knew and when and what have you. But it does mean that the whole kind of negotiation has been thrown into disarray, because crucially Qatar was also where the mediation was happening to try and broker a ceasefire deal. So we're not sure what will happen next in terms of that. But here's the other thing. The Trump administration says it was notified, but it doesn't say that it was consulted. And if there was an option for America to use its military leverage that it has over Israel to basically stop Israel from going ahead and attacking Qatar, it clearly didn't take that option.
Let's just cross to Jerusalem now and to Paul Adams. So, Paul, really interesting hearing what Nomia has to say there about events in the White House in that briefing. From your perspective there in Jerusalem, where does this leave the efforts to try to bring about an end to the war in Gaza? What does it mean for the hostages remaining inside Gaza and, of course, for the Palestinians in Gaza as well?
Well, a lot of questions there. Let's take them one by one. In terms of what it means for the kind of diplomatic process, well, I think this was Benjamin Netanyahu essentially washing his hands of that process. The Israelis set out to eliminate all of the key figures currently involved in the negotiating process. And they in the speech that Mr. Netanyahu gave a little bit later on at the US Embassy, he made a direct appeal to the people of Gaza, saying, look, put aside the Hamas, ignore them, do a deal, sign a peace deal with us, and your future could be so much better. It was a little reminiscent of what he said to the people of Iran while Israel was attacking Iran a few months ago. But we don't know whether this operation has actually worked. Hamas have put out quite a detailed statement condemning the raid, but also listing the people that they say were killed. And they include a number of Hamas officials, but very, very junior ones, no one of any real consequence, and none of the senior leadership. If that is the case, and we're going to have to wait, I suspect, for a few hours or maybe even a day or so before we know the truth of who was killed in that attack. But if that is true, then Israel has spectacularly failed to achieve what it set out to achieve by launching this raid. And not only would it have failed, it would have also paid an enormous price in terms of ruffling feathers at the White House, as you just heard, angering countries like Britain and France. The raid is believed to have killed a single Qatari soldier. So there's fury across the region, in particular in Qatar, about this. This is a big price, a diplomatic and political price that Israel has paid. It will have been happy to pay that price if it felt the operation had worked. Right now, we don't know if it worked. As for the hostage families, they are in agony once again tonight, wondering if a death sentence has been signed for their loved ones still held in captivity in Gaza. And as for the Palestinians, well, they continue to be under attack relentlessly, with this operation focusing on Gaza City, moving up a gear all the time. And some of them heeding the Israeli warnings to get out of Gaza City and head south, but a large number of them staying put. And they will have heard Benjamin Netanyahu's appeal to them this evening, and I doubt whether many of them will have been in a frame of mind to take him up on his offer.
OK, Paul in Jerusalem and Nomia in Washington. Thank you both very much. And just in the last few seconds, we're seeing a little bit of detail about the phone call that has taken place between President Trump and the Emir of Qatar, with the Emir saying Qatar will take all necessary measures to protect its security and preserve its sovereignty. Of course, Donald Trump in this situation trying to maintain good relations with Israel, but also very much trying to maintain good relations with Qatar, where thousands of US soldiers are based, and indeed with that wider region of Gulf states with which the administration has numerous ties economically and otherwise.